Crescent Moon Club, in association with ABT, presents Omnibus Unlimited, a roundtable discussion of provocative subjects which must be addressed now. Radiovision for the 21st century. Hello again, everyone. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. Tonight, our topic of discussion is the Madman of 96th Street. With me to address this subject is our own producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan. John, thanks for making the show possible and for being here tonight.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for making the show possible with your presence. Great to be here. Beautiful night outside of our Brook studios in East Dedham.
Look at that moon. It's just amazing. John, the Madman of 96th Street. You have a little tale to tell about this person?
Yeah, and Larry, actually we're going to be talking about something that we're going to find out that you're familiar with. We're going to be talking about the plight of the homeless. And some friends that I've met, we're going to be talking about the plight of the mentally ill as well. The Madman of 96th Street takes place in New York. As you can tell, we're outdoors, by the way. This is another outdoor omnibus. We usually use video inserts with some of these programs, but tonight we're actually outdoors. As you can hear, the cicadas chirping. The Madman of 96th Street. And where's my source? You're going to laugh. From WXRK, a personality, Howard Stern. Actually, Robin Quivers relayed this information to me. And I thought that when I heard this story that maybe we should do a program about it. So hence the Madman of 96th Street. Well, Larry Hogue is the gentleman's name. He was a homeless, we'll say vagabond or bum on 96th Street. And Larry, I'm sure you'll take offense to that. As far as these are, we'll find out these people have a huge background. Anyways, he existed on 96th Street. He used to stop traffic. He'd urinate and defecate in the middle of the street on himself. He'd hang out in alleys. He was a homeless person. Anything for that drink. Well, it seems that he's suing New York as they're trying to move him. And he's retained a lawyer. And here's a man that is mentally unstable. I mean, this is somebody that literally would stand in the middle of 96th Street in New York City and stop traffic. And for somebody like that, they're dangerous people that are not only dangerous to themselves, but they're dangerous to others, these mentally ill people that are homeless. What I'm leading to is, how are we treating our mentally ill? Are we giving them the proper treatment, or are we just giving up on them and releasing them into the streets because that segment of the population is increasing day by day, week by week?
Well, it's very interesting, John, and I wonder if,
although
indeed,
I didn't get my point across, somehow I got lost in the staring at the moon. But go on, Larry.
Well, but what you bring up is very interesting, because is mental illness among homeless people caused by being homelessness, caused by homelessness? That is to say, when one becomes homeless initially, are they mentally ill? Or, after being homeless for so long, do they become mentally ill? I think that's a very interesting question, which I personally cannot answer, although I was homeless for some time, but never took part in the activities of the 96th Street Madman. I didn't stop traffic, I didn't urinate or defecate in public. I'd be interested to know how a homeless person could retain a lawyer to remain homeless, but that's another question. But I don't think I was homeless long enough to contract any mental illness. So I'm very interested as to whether or not mental illness among homeless people is derived out of being homeless. What do you think, John?
Yeah, you bring up a point. First of all, severe alcoholism accompanies most homeless people, wouldn't you say? I'm not that wino stereotype, number one, and the severe alcoholism, as we know, just as if an alcoholic is trying to refrain from alcohol, trying to remain in a vow of temperance, they suffer DTs. So alcohol can have effects if it's taken away from you suddenly. You can hallucinate, or if you abuse it beyond the point of the mind's believability.
But not all homeless people are alcoholics. In fact, when I was homeless, I consumed alcohol less than when I wasn't homeless. Simply by the first of all, I didn't beg for money, and not having money out on the street means that you won't drink. So for me, I actually drank less when I was homeless than when I had a home. So alcohol and homelessness does play a part, but not always. It's not a given.
What about the Madman of 96th Street? Here it is. They want to put him in a shelter, move him, and he says, "No, this is my home. You can't." And he retains a lawyer. Is that absurd, or do we follow the Constitution to the letter and say that he has a right to do that?
Why not? Because the 13th Amendment was never passed in the United States Constitution forbidding lawyers from serving in public office, I think it's indicative of the confusion that our country reels from these days. Lawyers are in control of this country and will be for a long time. So a lawyer representing a homeless person to remain homeless, sure, why not? Stranger things have happened.
Let's look at the plight of the homelessness. I guess that segment of the population first came to be in America, I guess, in the early 1930s after the stock market crashed. That literally put people out on the streets, bread lines, massive unemployment. That's when it first happened, and it was all revolved around the banks and stocks, money.
Well, that's when it became acute. That's when it became noticeable. I think that any immigrant that comes to this country, and certainly many of them came before 1930, spends a certain amount of time homeless until they work and find a home, which is a difficult thing to do, I might add. Being homeless means that your chances of garnering a job are less because you do not have an address in which to send the check, as it were. Although, when I was homeless, I saw plenty of people who were employed who were homeless. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. But sure, I think certainly by 1930, post-1930, it became very acute and stayed with us, as I think you're alluding to, John, to this day. That was the beginning of the epidemic of homelessness.
And homelessness is just one step below unemployment. So when you see an unemployment statistic, you can more or less get a good calculation, use that as a barometer as to how large the homeless population is. For somebody to be homeless, Larry, let's get into your sitch. What year did you become homeless, and why?
I became homeless in 1984. It was just after my wife had decided to leave me. I had a problem with drugs, and kind of lost sight of what it was I wanted to do and who it was I wanted to be, if I ever had a sight at all. And perhaps that is one of the reasons why I lost controls, because I had no goal. But in 1984, I became homeless. I was in the street for 6 months or so, and thought many times I was going to die.
What month of 80? So you're talking wintertime, right?
Yes. This began in November.
Okay.
And ended in June, right around June.
Okay.
Of the next year. There were many times that I spent the night in an MBTA train. being rousted by the cops in the morning. Spent a couple of nights in an empty salt box. Corner alleyways, you name it, I was there. I spent time in shelters, but I would not spend time in a shelter that was full. Certainly, any shelter you went to would not turn you away. But if the beds were full, they could only offer you a floor. And there was no way I was going to allow roaches to crawl all over me. All shelters are notorious for being roach-ridden, and I would not do that. But 1984, and then right around, of course, and this leads to June of 85, when I wasn't exactly homeless, but I was underhoused, let's say. I got a job as a taxi cab driver and saved enough money to buy a car and began to live in my car.
From June of 85 on.
From June 85 to about November of 85, November, December of 85, another 6 months. So it was about a full year that I was either homeless or underhoused, as it were. And there were a couple of times when I was homeless, from the end of 84 to the middle of 85, especially during the winter. I thought I was going to die.
Freeze to death, starve to death,
Absolutely
both?
freeze to
Somebody's
death.
going to kill you? What? How?
Thought I was going to die of exposure. Not somebody trying to kill me, not from hunger. I could always hit up friends or relatives for some food, but as far as freezing to death, boy, there were 3 or 4 times I thought I'd bought it. But somehow I survived, and not that I would recommend being homeless to anyone, but it certainly taught me how to survive.
Did you ever panhandle?
Never. I never...
Why not?
Never begged for money. I don't know. Through it all, I guess I had... I would only beg from known people, friends, relatives. Interesting that I would not beg from total strangers when so many homeless people make a career of that these days. I know I could have, and it just seemed humiliating to be seen. I tried to stay out of sight. Being homeless was a very humiliating time of my life. It's very difficult to talk about it now, although it may not sound like it. I think it's important to talk about it. It helps me.
Absolutely.
It helps others. So I would try to hide my homelessness. If I was homeless and if I were going to die, I was going to do it in private, damn it.
You talked about some of the experiences you had regarding coming close to freezing to death. You never contracted frostbite, did you? Or did you ever contract hypothermia? Or?
No, fortunately I didn't. I was always able to, at the last moment, at the last minute, find some refuge. The empty salt boxes I talked about earlier.
What is an empty salt box?
Well, for those of you who remember back in the days when they had boxes on the sidewalk for the wintertime that were filled with rock salt.
Okay.
Some of these, I wouldn't exactly sleep in one that was exposed to the winter, but generally an empty salt box that is, or an empty container of some sort in an MBTA or some sort of public facility. And I would, at great peril, of course, because if somebody locked the outside, I was screwed. I was inside. But being homeless and being exposed to the elements, you had to take that chance. There were many times that I would spend many hours down at the MBTA spot at the aquarium. That was a favorite spot of mine, a favorite spot of many people. You couldn't get a bench. They were all taken.
Is there a class society in the homeless? Like, for instance, the Madman of 96th Street. Okay, here's somebody that's obviously a professional bum, but obviously mentally unstable, stopping traffic, defecating in public. He seems to fall... You obviously were one of the highly intellectual homeless, and there are a lot of highly intellectual homeless. Maybe doctors, the proverbial doctor that lost it in the bottle, or lost it up his nose. somebody who's fallen from grace, and they get paralyzed by their own lethargy, okay, and they can't move. They are immobilized, and I think that unemployment does that to people. I collected unemployment for a short period, and I was paralyzed, enjoying the good life of laziness and Gilligan in the morning. You know,
Insurance will do that.
unbelievable. I think that unemployment benefits should be checked into. Single white males should not get it. I don't think so. If their parents are alive.
Gee, if their parents are alive, that's another case of being underhoused, I would say. Again, at this point in my life, I am still underhoused. That is to say, I do not enjoy the privacy of my own apartment or home. I'm living at home with my parents. I'm not at all proud of that.
But you're living rent-free.
I'm living rent-free, and thank goodness for that, because if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be able to exist at all. The bills that I have to pay, that I have accumulated through my years, just rent would kill that. I would not be able to pay any bills. I would not have any social life whatsoever. This is not necessarily a bad thing, I might add.
No.
You know, and as you pointed out, in the 1930s, this is when this became acute. It's when it became a problem to be dealt with. People move back in with their folks.
Yeah. I think it's an American phenomenon. In the 80s, I'm seeing it happen to my friends all around. I tried to move back in 1987, back to my 88 rather, back to my house, and my dad said, "No way. Lock the door," and said, "Be a man." And I think supporting yourself, and if you cannot support yourself both financially, emotionally, and physically, those are three things that attribute to somebody being homeless. Now, getting back to my question about the homeless society, the homeless culture being stratified as far as an upper class, a middle class, a lower class, and a fiefdom, I guess. Did you notice that? You were mentioning going to the aquarium for the cherry bench or what have you. Tell me about that.
Absolutely, John. It's fat. I never thought about it before you just suggested that, but you're absolutely right. There is an upper class, a middle class, a lower class, and the absolute dregs of homeless people. There are homeless people that are, as the Madman of 96th Street shows, there are professional homeless people. I certainly saw
people that
them.
are making a profit, Larry. Is that what you're into?
Absolutely. They don't have to pay any mortgage. They don't have to pay any rent. They have jobs. I saw more than one person at shelters that had their own suitcase full of clothing.
Wow.
And would check in at the shelter early enough to get a bed. You got to get in there at a certain time, or otherwise there were no beds left. They'd get in early enough, 5 or 6 o'clock, and they'd be out by 7 when the shelter kicks you out. Because remember, the shelter does kick you out in the morning, but they will accept you back in about 5 or 6 o'clock at night. But people who made an absolute living out of it,
Panhandling?
homeless people pick up a cab in front of the shelter in the morning to go to work. So
Wow.
You're absolutely right, John. I'd never thought about it before, but you're absolutely right. There's an upper, middle, lower, and lower class of homeless people.
The lower class homeless being a cross species of human and animal, and I don't mean that facetiously.
No, I would think
because,
that's accurate.
That they're living off of their most primitive and basic instincts, which is feeding, not eating, feeding, and digestion. But now, looking back at this, okay, so you go to the aquarium. What happens? Do you have dibs on a certain spot?
No, I was. You have to be homeless for a great deal of time. I would say at least a year or two before.
Oh, so there's actually a club or somebody.
It's a clique. It's an absolute.
So they know how long you've been out on the
Sure,
streets.
they've seen you before. They've talked to you. I didn't associate or converse very much with the other homeless people. I was too mortified in my own homelessness and in the sight of other homeless people to actually even talk. What can you possibly talk about when you're homeless? What? And I won't say that I didn't talk to other people. I did. There were some very intellectual, very extremely brilliant homeless people.
And so then you hung out with them, or you would just cross?
No,
your
I didn't
paths would cross on one feeding or
That's
one
right.
shelter.
It would be ships passing in the night, as it were, just sort of crossing paths and shoot the breeze. Very, very, very odd.
This seems to be a triggered question and choreographed, but obviously you didn't realize there were as many people in your similar predicament.
By no means did I know that there were so many homeless people similar to my own situation. And actually worse off. I'd see homeless people with ripped open faces, ripped open knees, just terrible conditions. But no, I didn't know until I actually became homeless. Because when you're homeless, you are thrust into that situation. And you can't,
Desperation, man.
and can't help but notice the plight of others among you.
Now, okay, so the stratified homeless society, you have the intellects, and you have the middle class, but there are drug users, heavy drug users, heavy alcohol abusers, thieves, crooks, swindlers, as you intimated, and then there are cardboard cities, which there's nothing wrong with them. In China, there are bamboo and rice paper cities, but talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because since you bring up the idea of a class within the homeless, just by thinking about it for a few moments now, I'd have to say that the drug users and the cardboard apartment dwellers, these are the people that make up the lower and sub-lower class, the absolute dregs of homelessness. These are people who have resigned themselves to homelessness. They have lost all hope. As opposed to the upper class who make a profession out of it, who make a living out of it. They have lost hope in a certain sense, but they are bound and determined to make it work for them. And so they hold down jobs and the like, or they become professional panhandlers. I think it's the middle class that is the transient group, the people who are
The middle class of the homeless.
The middle class of the homeless who are either going to, which I was, the people who are either going to get out of being homeless, who will either make it work or get lucky, or they will go the other way. They will either become
another class.
They will become the upper class or the lower class. The upper and lower class are there pretty much for good. It's the middle class that may get back into the mainstream. It is those people that still have hope, that still remember what it used to be like to have a home, to have a bed, a regular bed, warmth, running water, a
Things
toilet.
that everybody takes for granted, being the
The
spoiled
things.
American.
I'm not even talking about a phone or even TV, just a house, just a building, a roof over your head with heat, with light, with a bed, and a certain amount of security. People who are out in the street do not have that, and it's the middle class of the homeless that remembers what this was like, still holds some shred of hope, and will either get back into the mainstream or will end up in either the lower or upper class. Strange as that may seem, it's odd. It seems so clear to me now that you've suggested that idea.
We've got about 5 minutes remaining in tonight's program. Let's now. How can we help them? Is this therapy? Is that a bunch of crap? These therapists that have never been homeless, do you get the homeless to help the homeless like a former drug user would help a drug user? Do you have an airlift like they do in Bosnia, you know, where they drop things and have a feeding, a massive frenzy, because the second and third world countries in this, the homeless people in this country have it better than most third world country people, okay? Right. So when we're talking homeless, yeah, they have a lean-to or what have you, but they don't know where their next meal is coming from, and they literally are ravaged by disease. How do we go about, do we tag these people and catalog them?
How do we deal with it? How do we eradicate it?
I'm not saying eradicate it, but how do we help them get back into society? Because I know it could happen to anybody out there.
I don't know, John. I think that you'll find that homelessness, like anything else, has a cycle. Some people are homeless for a while, then they're not, and new ones come in to replace them.
Okay. So you're saying there are a lot of people like you that have come from a homeless background and are making it in the world, although you don't like your current living situation, though.
It's a hell of a lot better than what I was experiencing at the time.
Life is great, man.
Oh, it's a hell of a lot better than life is terrific compared to the way it used to be. But try to keep in mind, homelessness is not unique to the United States, to America. You've got the Soviet Union, when it was still the Soviet Union, would imprison homeless people. If you didn't hold down a job, you were a criminal. If you look at Central America, people in Mexico or in Cuba, anywhere in Central America, you're going to find shanty towns. These are, anybody who lives in a shack with no running water, I would call that homeless. Mm-hmm. So I think that homelessness is not unique to the United States. I don't think that there's much you can do, although that in years past the United States of America has suppressed goodwill packages from other countries for our homelessness. The Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and the countries from Europe would send care packages to the United States for our homeless. But the United States was too embarrassed to ever release those packages, so they're still in warehouses somewhere in the country.
Or to either recognize that class, not until recently. Come on.
Not until recently. There's no way they want to recognize it.
We've only got 3 minutes left, Lar. So we've discussed you've gotten out of the situation just by finding a job, maybe getting a little luck, a little timing, a little prayer. You knew that things could only get better, that old philosophy, I've been to the bottom and I can only go up. For the homeless population, I see it as increasing. I see it also as an endangered species in your lap, but if tuberculosis, which I predict, will ravage through the homeless population probably within the next 5 to 10 years, will wipe out a whole stratified layer of society, which is the homeless. I see tuberculosis spreading through prisons as well, as we see that AIDS is. But my point is, throughout the world, we're seeing very much so a lot of nomadic people, due to their religion, being forced from their land that they've known, due to enclaves and old ancient territorial boundaries. That's causing people to flee. We're seeing the people being forced out of the Soviet Union to the Iranian border. We see people being squeezed out of Yugoslavia. We saw the Kurds squeezed out of Iraq. So there are a lot of people that are being forced to be homeless. Do you see anybody in the United States being forced to be homeless? And we got to make it quick because we're down to our final minute.
Yes, and I will make it quick. I see homelessness being an omnipresent society, except for perhaps for being wiped out by disease, which is quite possible. And if any disease takes hold of the planet, it'll happen with the homeless first. But whether it's for economic or political reasons, there will always be homelessness. I mean, we have homelessness right now in Bosnia, so there will always be homelessness, whether it's for economic or political reasons, and there is nothing that can be done about it.
Thank you very much, Lon. Closing thoughts or closing words?
Well, just that my heart goes out to any homeless person out there, and that's about all I can do about it at this time.
God bless.
If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on Omnibus Unlimited, send your letter to Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577. I'd like to thank John Horrigan, our producer, and tonight a guest on Omnibus Unlimited. John, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Larry. It was very insightful talking with you.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited, saying thank you for your attention, good night, and good luck. Omnibus Unlimited is a production of ABT.